having a conversation here with Pascal Ackerman, the author of the new book, Modern Cybersecurity Practices. I'm just wondering, what had inspired you to write the book?
Mostly actually opportunity. So I had written a book and this company approached me, BPP Publishing. They approached me and they said they wanted to do an IT oriented book and mostly, like I said, the opportunity came, I grabbed it, but also because I wanted to see if I could. I had already done an OT geared books and OT and IT. The difference for people listening, OT is operational technology, so like your industrial network, your industrial cybersecurity, and IT is your everyday databases and web security and all that stuff. The companies more the enterprise functions. So that's it. Opportunity and challenging myself, which I think everybody should do on a regular basis.
Amen. Yeah. And then when you were writing the book, who I guess was your intended audience that you had in mind?
So like I said, opportunity and challenging myself. The audience was for most of all myself at first. I was going to sit down and write a book that if I wanted to get into the field of cybersecurity and mainly the security monitoring, because if you look at the book, most of it is dedicated to security monitoring. If I were a beginner in that field, I wanted to read it in such a way, and thank you for noticing it. That's the way it turned out as well. So the audience is beginning cybersecurity people and people curious in what it all involves to get to some sort of a security posture.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it sounds like if you could go back in time and give it to yourself, perhaps when you were just starting out, that's the kind of content you would have liked to have gotten at that time.
And actually, those are the kind of books that I have been reading for a long time to get into it. Some of the classics are written that way.
Okay. Well, then I guess on that topic then of monitoring and cybersecurity, for you and in your experience, what factors, and I know it was alluded to in the book, but what factors affect a company's cybersecurity maturity?
First of all, it's the level of support for a cybersecurity program. So, in all honesty, unless it comes from the C-level, unless it's been driven by upper management, most of these will fail. An upwards movement doesn't work. So if people in the trenches want to implement cybersecurity and they have to convince their management, that's not going to work. And I've seen that fail over and over again. But so proper support from the C-level executives, and then the next thing is seriousness about the program and willingness to roll up the sleeves and get it done. Commitment. You need to have dedicated people. You need to have awareness all the way to upper management. So everybody needs to be on board with it, because it is, depending on the type of organization, this is a game-changing implementation. Either way will work. I've seen both there, where a C-level executive have gone to some conference and they've picked up some cybersecurity lingo and they want to implement it. I've also seen it where peers or people have convinced their C-level to support this, but support is the key word here. It needs to be driven. If you're going to implement policies and procedures, it has to be stamped by that level of executives.
Okay. So I guess in the case where the C-level is the one implementing the change, it makes sense that everyone will kind of follow suit. But I know you do some consulting work as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. When I guess you are working with your clients, or when you've spoken to your clients, how are they positioning this to the C-level? When they're hoping to kind of get the change that they'd like to see? Like, how are these directors and managers positioning it to the C-level to then get a good response and some positive buy-in from the C-level?
See, the successful way I've seen it done is somehow make this just a cost of doing business. Just like you have cost for your packaging, just like you have cost for maintenance of your trucks for delivery of your goods. This needs to become part of doing regular business. And one way to show the executive what it's going to cost if you don't implement it is to look at people in the field. So you look for comparative companies that do the same type of business as you, and you look at some of the compromises they've had, and it's easy to pick up some of those numbers and say, okay, these company X, Y, and Z got hacked, and it costed them $70 million to recover from it. There it is. There's your budget to implement it. A single event in a comparative company costing $70 million, your budget should be close to that for implementing a good security program.
Okay. So it sounds like taking like, hey, we peers, like us in our industry have seen similar security events, and kind of saying and kind of gaming that out and saying, hey, if this were to happen to us, what would the impact be to the business, and kind of letting them, roll through the consequences of that and feel it.
Yep. So that would be an attention grabber, and then from that you can make this a part of your cost of doing business. So your usual expense. That's where it ends up anyway. That's where it should end up.
And either for yourself or through your clients, I guess, how have you seen them communicate the delta of that, saying like, hey, I know we expressed, you bought into this idea or bought into the reality that we are potentially at risk. How do they then tell them, hey, we've made progress? How do they kind of demonstrate that to perhaps someone who isn't as well versed as themselves or yourself in security?
I always recommend to do a good awareness program where you involve people with training and with a lot of information. So you go out and you show them those incidents that are going on in the cyberspace. You say, look, company quite similar to us, they got infiltrated. This is what went wrong, and this is what we're doing to prevent that. And then you do other awareness trainings and you publicize the results from it. You do an awareness trainings where people have to answer a bunch of questions, and at the end you get a scoring out of it. Publish those scorings and see how well you do, and then month to month, year to year, you either see improvement or not, but you have something to show and something to work with.
Okay, yeah, I think just from the conversations I've heard, and then I think for some maybe it's news, but I think for a lot of people it's an old story of communicating this sort of abstract notion to the C-level. I think there's a big need for that in the cybersecurity space, and people like yourself that are able to help them have those conversations is pretty huge. And so the more conversations like that, the better. So thank you.
And just to be clear, not just C-level, everybody. So I'm talking about bulletin boards. I'm talking about newsletters, sending them out to the company, and just show to everybody that, hey, we're on top of it. We're taking care of business. This is what happens in the environment. This is how we prevent it, so that everybody's aware and everybody becomes part of this program.
This has been part one of a 3-part series of interviews with author Pascal Ackerman about his new book, Modern Cybersecurity Practices. If you'd like to hear the rest, feel free to visit my LinkedIn, Mike McCarthy, at Blumira, or visit the Blumira website at blumira.com.